Deep Dive Film School makes no claim of ownership of the film footage used in this episode. The film footage is owned entirely by the copyright holders. Deep Dive Film School uses the footage only for purposes of education, commentary, and criticism under fair use. Also, we're going to spoil the hell out of this movie, so this is your warning. Welcome to Deep Dive Film School!
This week we are going to begin our Rising Female Filmmakers Festival with 2017's Lady Bird.
Let's dive on in. Hello, everybody. I am Adam Sherlock.
And I'm Adam Palcher.
And please, if you like what you see/hear, please like and subscribe to our little channel here.
Our little show?
Yeah. Normally it doesn't look like this, however.
No, it doesn't. Things have changed since we last recorded. Obviously, this is affecting the entire world, so please bear with us if any weird technical things. And obviously, the format of the show is, from a visual standpoint, it looks a little bit different here. So, but excited to keep providing you guys with content. So yeah, we're here every week. We're going to plan on continuing to do this. We're shooting from our houses. You see my vat of movies behind me.
Your wall of glory.
I got Alien to Tango and Cash. Whatever you need, Pulchbuster is open. So
Pulchbusters. Oh, it's so sad how dated that joke is now.
It is. That is true. I wonder how many people know what that is.
There's like millennials that are like, was he like a vacuum cleaner or is he like a Ghostbuster or what's that mean?
I do stop at Tango and Cash. T is where we stop. Nothing past that. No Zombie Land. No Whiplash. Tango and Cash is the last one.
Yes, I'd like to have a look at your cult section, please. All right, so let's talk about this brand new festival, Paulch. So
yes,
this is another one of these ones where I let you pretty much handle it. Although I did fly my little freak flag to be like, ooh, Babadook, which we'll be reviewing next week.
I suggested Babadook, I think too.
I was definitely on board for a horror movie.
I knew you would be, and that's a movie we must talk about, and we will talk about next episode. But yeah, obviously, I've said this before, but I think, people of color and women are going to make some of the most important films I'm predicting probably in the next 10 years. And I think it's super important to highlight these women. They don't get a ton of representation anyways, just in the nature of the business of Hollywood. They don't get as much opportunity, and it's obviously not a fair shake. So I love to highlight female directors. There's many that we've talked about on the festival. Katherine Heigl, Suzanne Bier are two that I can think of just right off the bat that we absolutely love everything they do. It's funny, after I made the content calendar for this festival, I was like, oh, this is kind of just an A24 festival.
I was wondering that. I know, man. It's really funny. Like who else is doing that level of quality though? Right now?
They're honestly defining an era of indie film. I think with a lot of their choices, they obviously started off with a bang with a lot of really solid horror stuff, and then they branched out into other indie dramas and indie comedies, and I think they're really paving the way for all these women to be represented, and it's super exciting. Just to go over the movies real quick before we dive into Lady Bird. Obviously Lady Bird, Babadook, like we've talked about. We're also going to hit on The Farewell by Lulu Lang, and then Olivia Wilde's Booksmart. So really excited. Not only are we hitting a bunch of female directors, but international female directors that I'm always an advocate for foreign films to get more love. So
definitely. Cool. Let's start with Lady Bird here. So this is 2017.
Yep, Greta Gerwig, her directorial debut. She's mostly known for being an actress in the past. My favorite probably being Frances Ha, the Noah Baumbach movie.
And she's married to Noah Baumbach, correct?
I don't know if they're married. They may be married, but I know they're definitely in a relationship.
Okay.
But yeah, she just did the Little Women movie this past year, which was very excellent. And then she's doing a Barbie movie in 2020. I don't think
it's so weird. I don't understand how this happens. So again, this movie here, Lady Bird, Greta Gerwig described it as wanting to have a female version of a sort of 400 Blows type of story.
Interesting. We recently have reviewed both Boyhood and Moonlight, and I think they can fall in the same category as those as well. Just these coming of age stories.
Probably the most lighthearted of those three.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But I think part of what makes that work is that what I noticed more than anything with this is that, and it's weird to say this now, but it is a period piece. It takes place between 2002 and 2003. It's
definitely weird to say that.
But it's 18 years ago, right? So I mean, I know. But I think the thing that's interesting here is it does manage to still play with this kitschiness and this kind of cringy humor that high school movies tend to have, but it's not cartoony, right? It's not Drop Dead Gorgeous. It's not Napoleon Dynamite. It's just an honest cringe, right? It's a very realistic cringe.
Absolutely. When I first watched this movie, this was my second time watching it, and I was like, I finished. I was like, oh, that's a really good movie. They definitely touched on some highlights similar to like how Boyhood did with some music. And a few other things that are going on in the world. Obviously, this is a post 9/11 world as well. Right. I think that's really, really important in this era, in this period piece. The world mentally has shifted a bit, and this is just a girl in Sacramento that's just trying to get by and figure out who she is. She's rebelling. She's got the purple hair and all that stuff.
Right down to her name, right? She's decided
red hair, purple.
Rather than, I think her real name is Catherine, I think. And
Catherine, but yeah, just calling herself Lady Bird.
Lady Bird.
The first time I saw that in the end, I was like, that was just a really solid movie. And now watching it again, I was just like, wow, that was just an amazing, well done, wonderful movie. Almost timeless in a way, with me being someone who lived through that era around the same time as well. Like, the fact that they keep playing Dave Matthews Band Crash kills me.
Man.
It kills me every time. Just like, it's so funny. And I love at a moment of the movie, she defends the song and really is just like, you know what? No, fuck that. I love this song. This is a great song. And but just knowing, like, hearing that on the radio and reacting to it, it just gives me, someone who lived through that era at a very similar age, like, a ton of nostalgia to this. Plus, it's just an honest view of, like, trying to figure out who the hell you are. Like Greta Gerwig said that this is not autobiographical. From her perspective, she was a lot more rebellious than Lady Bird was at a younger age. But she definitely said that Marianne, Laurie Metcalf, who's fucking outstanding here, is definitely her mom. And you could tell because that character is so perfectly defined down to her haircut. Like,
yes. And then these nuances of the arguments. And this very first one that we get when they're driving in the car and they've just finished listening to the book on tape for Grapes of Wrath, and they're both crying. It's such a brilliantly written and acted scene to open a movie on, where we immediately see their bond, and then right away they start arguing. But it's more of these little snipe arguments. It's not big stuff, right? And
never
that snipey argument eventually blows up to the point where she throws herself out of the car. And that's how we kind of start our movie. And then she has the cast that says, "Fuck you, Mom," on it. It's like just that one after another. I'm like, man, that is a hell of an opener. That is such a fantastic opener.
Just bailing out of the car. And that's, then we get the credit sequence.
And she says, "How did I raise such a snob?" I love it.
It's funny. I never really thought about them not really being big arguments. I think they do have one big argument that comes to us at the end, and you see how her mom reacts to that, of her going off to college and those types of things. But yeah, it's all really nitpicky. Like, you're never kind of good enough. Not to the degree of someone like the mom and I, Tanya. Right. It's nothing like that, but it's really like self-deprecating, and she's already as a woman wondering why she doesn't look like the girls in the magazine, right? And she's already going through this stuff. I'm talking about Lady Bird's Saoirse Ronan here, and I don't know. She is so excellent here. I think she's one of the best actresses we have going, honestly. Like,
oh yeah, I think she kind of came out of nowhere and then started popping up in all these movies, and she has such a striking appearance to her, and then is in particular in this movie, I love her character of Lady Bird. I love that she makes these and this is you can only get away with this in high school, I think, where you make these proclamations about things you've decided, right? And it's like she's planting a flag. She's like, well, I think that, and then it's some statement about a thing. And we meet a lot of other teenagers in this movie that operate on a similar level. And I think that this is maybe one of the most, in recent memory, one of the most honest portrayals of what it's actually like to be a teenager. This is like, most of the time teenagers are written with this tin ear where you're like, oh, that's an adult. That's an adult trying to be like, oh, we were clever when we were teenagers, instead of, no, we were cringy and we were assholes to each other and we backstabbed each other and we were mean, right? And then we would go from being mean to immediately apologetic to crying in the period of about 3 minutes, right? And we see so much of that here, this sway between being completely obnoxious know-it-alls and totally vulnerable kids who lie and make things up to seem cooler than they are. Like, it is so pitch perfectly done here.
I absolutely agree. They're at that point of their life where they're dreaming of a bigger life with money and all this time and no worries, and and they're obviously in the middle of high school as well. So, and honestly, really, you think about the high school experience for girls and how often we see that on film. Not very much. It usually ends up being like the girlfriend, and we get some side story where she might be like this slutty girl or something, where here, you see the real indications, the indications of tough choices in high school, and worrying always, and this is, I'm sure, goes beyond high school, but just worrying about looking the part and looking how you're supposed to look. I love that Greta Gerwig didn't really put a lot of makeup on Saoirse Ronan and the character in this, because it
she
just
has acne.
A little more authentic.
It's fantastic. She has real acne, and she has kind of like a shitty dye job in her hair. It's so pitch perfect. And I think the other part of that too, just to go to your point in this idea of dreaming of a bigger life for yourself as a teenager, the script also allows all this room to breathe for the parents. And so we get these nesting boxes of people's realities that can be so crushing and heartbreaking, where she is riding this high after kissing her boyfriend, her love interest. She's walking in the door just like, and they're trying to figure out if they can keep their house because dad's lost his job.
For sure. First off, Tracy Letts, the dad, wins like one of the best movie dads ever in this movie. He's so
my
awesome.
God. Don't you just want to put your arm around him and tell him it's going to be okay?
Exactly. And he's married to this pretty difficult lady.
Yeah, she's a whirlwind.
And Laurie Metcalf, but she constantly brings up how poor they are. Like, she wants to read a magazine and she's like, "Well, read it here." And she's like, "No, I want to read it in bed." She's like, "No, that's something rich people do. We're not rich people."
Read a magazine in
just
bed.
Always pointing out that how poor they are. And it's just gotta keep beating down on her. Obviously she wants her to be a resourceful, good person, but there's a point where, I don't know.
It's that snipey thing I was talking about, and I think that it's really realistic, which is, I love you, but at the same time, you're the one I can needle in this way, right? And
exactly.
I might not needle any of your siblings that way, but you're the one who gets this.
I'm your parent, and you're supposed to be a better version of me, right? And this is how, my mom was an alcoholic, so you should be thankful that I'm here to tell you this stuff. She wasn't there to tell me all this
Yeah,
stuff, right?
yeah. Well, and some of those lines of dialogue, it's funny, you and I, when we were kind of chatting about this the other day and looking at like, you know, and I think I made the offhanded comment that, you know, like Zero Dark 30 isn't like a woman's story. Like it doesn't always have to be that like a female director or a female writer is going to necessarily couch things in that way. But so we were trying to figure this out, right? We were sussing out this idea of like, how much does it matter? And how much can you see that influence there? There are these lines of dialogue in this movie that I just go, this is so a woman looking back on her formidable teenage years. And even if it's not autobiographical, these ideas in it are like her telling her friend, wow, your mom really likes you, right? Like that's a male would never write that line of dialogue. Or when she says, your mom is really hard on you. And her response is, yeah, she loves me a lot. It's like, that is so nuanced and has so much dimension and detail in it that it just like, it left me swooning. I just was like, God, that is like, it's like you're seeing into someone's head, you know?
Absolutely. The mother-daughter relationship here is obviously like the biggest cog. It
was originally the title of the film. The title of the film originally was Mothers and Daughters.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. I mean, it's the biggest cog in the theme here, obviously, and she's on her ass about anything, but like you said, it is out of love. But I think also to what you said, the voice, those conversations between mother-daughter, I don't think could have been written as clearly as thought out as a man would write it, right? Like, I think there are points there that, like, just something a man, you know, men always like to think that they know what women are thinking or how they think, and that's never the case.
But I think to an even bigger degree, this idea that vulnerability and kindness or tenderness always has to seem like weakness, rather than it just being this like part of the badge of honor that you wear, right? Like that very female aspect where her and her mom are arguing and they are like mad at each other and they're arguing, and then she goes, oh my God, look at this dress. And she's like, oh yes, that's the perfect one, right? And they can immediately switch on a dime.
Yeah.
I don't know that maybe it's possible there's a male writer out there that can have that leap of imagination. But I'd be surprised.
But even something like the boob touching conversation with Danny, she's like, you know, you can touch my boobs, right? And he's like, oh, I respect you too much.
Yeah, oh my God. And you're like,
just hearing that,
smoking
just
like a true closeted gay boy.
No doubt. But you know, little things like that, I just don't know. You know, it's hard to tell, I guess. But I don't know. This movie to me was such a great rewatch, and I'm so glad I rewatched it. You know, critically, this movie is acclaimed. I think it's got one negative review on Rotten Tomatoes, and of course, there's always one asshole, but it's basically 100%.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
The
part that gets me continually is kind of seriously what I've talked about with Boyhood and how that captured me so much, is just nailing the era, the smoking clothes and Bone Thugs and Harmony at the prom, and just like
boom, man, boom. I know, right?
It's just I don't know. For me, that's what the movie just embraces these little idiosyncrasies about people and life. You know, just
this whole subplot about the dad losing his job and then going in. Oh my God, this is like a nightmare of mine. Is him going in and doing the interview with the kid who's like 30 years younger than him, and then his own son shows up to do the job interview also, and it was like that doesn't quote unquote need to be in this movie. But I'm so glad it is, because as you said, the father is such a completely carved out, self-actualized character. But at the same time, it's like that little moment there, which is just his story, right? Mm-hmm. Lady Bird isn't even in that part of the movie. It's just his story, and it is so cringe-inducing and makes you feel so much for him. But there's just great moments like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Even the idiosyncrasies as small as him getting the golf pillow for her Christmas present. You know, just like the little stupid things like that. Another one, another highlight for me is when when she joins the school play with her friend, who's played by Beanie Feldstein, who we'll see in Booksmart in a few weeks. They make the plays of The Tempest, and they can't get the acting coach or the acting teacher left, and so they got the football coach to direct the play. Oh my god, it is hilarious. Probably my favorite moment in the movie, where he's basically treating them like a front line of linebackers, telling them where to go, and all the blocking is, and he's screaming at them. I just was rolling.
You wait, and then you go, right?
Go, attack. It just I don't know, just the way that Greta Gerwig frames kind of her love / hate of Sacramento, I think is an interesting one. At some point, someone says it's the Midwest of California. Sacramento is the Midwest of California, but you could tell she has a lot of love for it, and it's important to her, even though she wants to go to this liberal arts college in New York, and her mom doesn't agree, doesn't even think she would qualify or get in. Just seeing her go through all that, and how important home is to, at the end of the movie, I think she realizes, she leaves this amazing message for her mom after this terrible night. And, it's all about home and thank you and all this. I don't know. It really shined through this time watching the movie how important that was to Greta Gerwig.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I think that there are all of these milestones that happen to her character that aren't even things that she's striving to have happen. I think that her finding her boyfriend kissing another boy, and then when he comes back to try to talk to her, and she at first is going to do this standoffish thing, and then he just starts sobbing to her. God, I started sobbing. That was such a powerful moment there.
Oh, yeah.
And just, when she's talking with her mom, and her mom says, look, I love you. I just want you to be the best version of you that you can be. And she's like, what if this is it? What if this is the best version of me that I can be? All of that stuff is brilliant, but the one that got me, man, that really is kind of the linchpin here, is that she gets rid of her kind of dorky, kind of schlubby friend.
Yeah.
Goes to hang out with the cool kids.
Yeah, this is the actual one of the few tropes that they hit that they used in the high school movie, right?
Yeah, they do, but they do it in such an authentic way that it is you feel it, right? You can't help but feel it, especially when she goes back and then they just start eating the cheese and they're joking around and talking shit. It's it just is, I don't know, man. The friends that you have when you're that age, it's very particular. It's very special, and I think Greta Gerwig really captures that. She really captures that feeling. And like you said, makes it timeless.
Absolutely. And again, it does come back to the mother-daughter relationship. She gets suspended for speaking up when they're talking about abortion. I think we have to mention, obviously, the school she's going to is a Catholic school. So, yes. There's a lot more on top of this that was even more relatable to me. Not that I went to Catholic school, but I had a Catholic upbringing, so I can see those things. But just the mom, Laurie Metcalf, she just can't, Marianne is her name, but she just can't give a compliment. She's like, I love you. And she's like, of course you love me, but do you like me?
Yeah. God. I want you to like me.
That.
Oh, that is the most heartbreaking thing, but it's totally how you feel when you're that age. And I have to say,
but even when she graduates high school, she's like, you kind of walked weird all on the way up. You can't even say you're amazing, great job. There's never that moment that we get, and when we do get it, it's by herself in the car, which again is brilliant. So
yeah, they miss each other.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think that there's a little subtext here that's interesting that I didn't think about till just now when we were talking about it. Obviously, the family doesn't have a lot of money, and so that's one hurdle of her not wanting her to go away to college. I didn't even think about this till just now. We're talking about it being 2002. she wants to go to college in New York City.
Post
I think it's an
9/11.
unspoken thing, but as you said, right after 9/11, there's probably a lot of fear there for her daughter to go off to a big city 1 year after there being such a huge event like 9/11.
Well,
I didn't even think about that till just now, but I like that wasn't.
Oh yeah,
that's never even really pointed to. But now that we're talking about it, I'm like, oh, that's totally part of it, right?
No, I totally thought of that. You know, I think that's part of the reason she shuts her off so much when she realizes that she was on a wait list for what I believe ends up being NYU. They never really say, but
yeah,
I think is where she goes. You know, and I don't know. She's almost scarier when she's quiet and she doesn't say anything, right? As a mom, it's just like it's hard to help your kids when you don't know what's going on in their lives and you're out of control, right? And you just don't know what to do. And, you know, luckily she has the coolest dad ever, and he helps her with scholarships and filling out all the financial aid forms and stuff. And, you know, we're getting to the point where it's her 18th birthday, and she has the most classic 18th birthday sequence that every 18-year-old dreams of when they turn 18, is to walk into a 7-Eleven convenience store type of place and order a pack of cigarettes, a Playgirl, and what else did she get?
A scratch ticket, like a lottery ticket.
Lottery tickets, that's right.
And she just sits and smokes cigarettes and looks at naked dudes in her magazine right outside of the convenience store. Again, this is like, it's so perfectly like rebellious in these tiny little flowery ways.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this. We were talking about the coolest dad ever. So is that you in 9 years when your daughter decides that she wants to go off to NYU?
Yeah, I would definitely be that part rather than the other part. For sure. I'm just not a high stress person, so I don't know. It's just, and I want my kids to enjoy the world. Honestly, it would surprise me if my daughter would want to do that. She's a very cautious person, so you know, especially in a post 9/11 world. But you know, there's this. We're getting to the ending here, and you know, she's moving on. She got accepted. She's packing boxes. She's painting. She's literally painting over her childhood.
Over the names of the boys that she wrote on her wall.
Mom still hasn't said anything. Is sad and bitter and helpless. And just like Lady Bird realizes at the end of the movie, kind of her hidden love for Sacramento. The mom realizes in the car and breaks down just her bitterness and sadness and stubbornness through the whole thing. Like, definitely an emotional moment. And Laurie Metcalf has been acting as long as she's been in my life since Roseanne, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Since like the mid 80s.
Yeah.
Like forever.
Yeah. And so she's always been a great actress. She's done a ton of theater work. And she's an underrated actress and needs to be used more. She is outstanding. Everyone here is outstanding. You have Timothée Chalamet. Just everyone here is really, really solid. And then we get back to Dad one more time, doing one more cool dad thing and leaving her all these letters that Mom wrote and discarded.
Oh, man. My heart.
I'm not sure why this movie hit me so much more the second time I saw it, but man, I appreciated it so much more on a second viewing and just kind of taking a step back. I don't know, expectations, especially when, you know, you're so critically acclaimed, expectations definitely can ruin things and ruin your perception of what a movie should be. So after you watch it that first time, you're like, okay, that's what that movie is. You think about it, you soak it in, and then maybe forget about it. And this one is such worth a revisit, I think, on a second time. It really hit me in a lot of ways and was just a great, wonderful story that really captured this time and era.
Yeah, I agree. I watching it a couple days ago was the first time I had ever seen it, and I cried like a baby. It totally affected me. I think that just the acting is so outstanding. And I'm such a sucker for these, I don't know, like these small stories, right?
Yeah.
Like I think back to,
it's more realistic. It's relatable, right?
It doesn't
engaging.
need to be, like, and then you ran away and then this happened and that happened. It can just be that like clumsy, awkward, incredibly authentic feeling version of your youth, right? Like,
no doubt,
perfect.
When she gets to New York and she's all wide-eyed and everything, and she goes to this party and drinks way too much. And the guy she's about to make out with makes fun of. He's like, "You have the worst music taste ever. Everything's greatest hits."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Why is that bad? They're all the greatest songs." And then she barfs right before they kiss and has to go to the hospital.
Yeah, and then the doctor's like, "She's just drunk. Get her out of here."
like I can imagine, like that potentially could be one of the scariest nights of your life if you're in a new city, especially New York City, and you're just, I don't know. They kind of played that down, honestly, and I wonder if that happened.
That's actually what I thought was so impressive is that they played it down. It doesn't. At no point are you like, "Oh my God, is she going to die at the end?" or anything.
No, yeah.
It's just like, it's more like, and now here's this rite of passage that she has to go through. And even she doesn't take it that seriously. She gets up and she's like, "Oh God, like, what did I do?" And like leaves. And it's like, yes, there's danger there, but since we're seeing it through her eyes, it's okay, right? We had been seeing it through her dad's eyes, it probably would have been like a horror movie.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Right, but instead it's like it's treated with kid gloves in just enough of a way that we go, because I remember feeling that way. I was like, that's funny that we didn't really take that seriously. And I was like, oh, because she didn't, right? Yeah. She's like, this is the life in the big city, college kid, right? Like, as terrifying as I thought that is.
It's a hell of a directorial debut, if you ask me. Right up there with some of the best of them, especially watching the second time and just really realizing the depth and the authenticity of this movie really took it to another level for me watching it this second time around. So glad you liked it. I figured you would love it. It's got a great sense of humor and really poignant, dramatic moments. But I love when you could get that really good mixture, that nice dramedy mixture. That's hard to do. Especially in something so personal.
Yeah, usually you slide too far into one side of that or the other. I think part of it's that you fall in love with her character so quickly.
Yeah.
I think within those first 5 minutes you're on board and you understand where both her and her mom are coming from.
For sure. Honestly, I can't pick like a bad thing out about this movie that I could. I would be nitpicky if I did. And
it's a lot of Dave Matthews. I'd say that's the only.
But tell me that song is not like.
No, it's
perfectly
it's totally perfect.
Yeah.
And it's even like I feel the same way. Where I was like.
Yeah,
I was like, yeah, man, I know. Crash into me, Dave.
Yeah. Oh, well, a great start to the festival. Super excited about this festival. Obviously, at a point, we were really hoping to get some female perspectives, and we hope to at some point throughout this festival. But we were hoping to have some guest hosts with us. Obviously, with coronavirus going on in COVID reality,
Wait,
with the COVID reality.
What is it?
You haven't heard of this?
How do you say it?
It's a bit harder to get people on board. This was a task in itself, honestly, setting this up. So, but we're going to keep coming to you as long as we can. So we'll be here every week. So make sure to like and subscribe. Next week we're going to get into Jennifer Kent's 2014 movie, The Babadook. Duke.
I can't wait.
Is it tomato, Duke? I know it's Duke. Yeah, excited to talk about that one. A horror movie, underrated horror movie as well. We'll get into that next week, so keep watching, keep subscribing, and we love you guys, and we'll see you next week.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.
Stay safe.
Have you gone anywhere fun lately, or what have you been up to?
Oh man, there's so much to do. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, this is obviously an unprecedented time.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, I mean, outside of walking my dog, I haven't really gone anywhere, honestly.
Oh, the dogs are having the greatest time ever.
Oh, they're very happy about work from home.
About whatever the hell it is that's happening.
Yeah, throw in an earthquake in the middle, and then that's just, you know.
That's the
wonderful.
thing. I like when that happened. Like, I'm not usually like I'm not religious at all or like really superstitious at all. But when that woke me up, that earthquake woke me up in the morning, like after we had already kind of gone on lockdown for the quarantine, I was like, what if it really is the rapture? Like, what if? Like, what if it's the rapture? And I was like, well, I'm certainly not going anywhere. I'm gonna have to be hanging out down here with all the sinners for a while.
I felt like there was a whole week where I kept saying, oh my God, what the fuck is happening?
I know.
That day in particular, I was just like, earthquake on top of a pandemic? Come on. Like, seriously, what's happening? I have no idea. Like, come on. This is already stressful enough. So
it was really weird.
It is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, you know,
right,
it's fine.